All right, welcome everybody back to the latest episode of the WildCard League. So I left off on week 3. So let's see what happened in week 3. Then we can get to the current day, look at some standings. Let's do some extra runs at the number 1 pick as well. Going to be a full action-packed episode. All right, let's start. Eastwood. He beat Ryan, both 4-1 teams, both at the top of the game. Kyler Murray had a good week. Eckler, Robinson, if you're counting at home, that's 3 guys over 20 points. Deontay Johnson's had issues with concussions and
injuries. Minshew didn't have that great of a game against Miami, surprisingly to me. DK Metcalf has been pretty consistent. 19 points this week for Ryan. Wentz on the bench. Herbert, who has been a really good quarterback so far for the Chargers in his rookie season, doing quite well. Who would have thought puncturing someone's lung would actually make the team better? Sanders on the bench. Let's go to the next matchup. Matt versus Elliott. Elliott took the W this week. Was riding Dak Prescott. Of course, he broke his leg, so we'll see how Elliott replaces the number 4 quarterback on the entire season. His worst week was week 1 before he got hurt against the Giants. Number 4 quarterback overall, yeah, that's a huge loss. Dalvin Cook had a good game. Aaron Jones, Godwin's been in and out with injury. Cooks had a bad game. Cooks is getting better. Well, we'll see. The next few weeks, Mark Andrews was disappointing. Had a couple good games recently. Keenan Allen over 20. So get some benches. A lot of injuries or postponements for both sides, it looked like. All right, the world's greatest against straight cash, homie. Russell Wilson hanging 40. That's a nice thing. Nice week. Derrick Henry with 26. That's why you traded for him. You know, that's a good week. Calvin Ridley's been pretty consistent. Let's take a peek at Calvin Ridley. Anytime. Yeah, number 3 wide receiver in PPR. Julio Jones has been hurt for most of the season, but he has filled in admirably, except for week 4, where he did not catch a ball. Higbee, I've had Higbee this year. He's been kind of disappointing. Almost got double digits this week. Sony Michel went off over 100 yards rushing. Look at some benches. Nobody seemed to play on the bench for Chris. Michael Thomas was injured at that point. All right, we have Ben versus Randy. Randy's worst week of the year. Didn't even get over 100 points. Ben was the highest point scorer this week. Josh Allen, Connor, Kamara almost had 45. Very impressive. Didn't matter that John Brown didn't catch anything. I believe he got hurt that game. Diggs had his worst output of the year. Jordan Reed got hurt by the look of it, or that could just be Jordan Reed being mediocre. Who knows? Michael Gallup had a huge game. Let's look at his points breakdown. So he had 28 points, had 2 40-yard receptions, got him an extra 4 points. Very valuable, especially in close games. This one wasn't a close game, but that's something you need to know how this league is scored. 40-point catches, runs are worth extra points. If you turn them into touchdowns, there's more extra points on top of those. No bad sits by the look of it. Only 2 players was over 10 points. Alrighty, we have Luke against Sean, very close matchup. Nick Chubb killing it. Mahomes had a huge game against Baltimore. I don't think many people saw that coming. He was due, so to do it against one of the best defenses in the NFL is pretty impressive. Hopkins, very consistent this year. Cooper Kupp over 20. Larry Fitzgerald 0.5. That's a rough start, but if you get the dub, that's all that really matters, right? Gaskin on the bench with 12. Lazard had 27. Higgins with 18 on Sean's bench. So those two guys would have made a big difference for you. So let's get out of that matchup. Joel versus Mosley. Joel took the W week 3. A little under 10 points. James Robinson's been pretty impressive. Let's take a deep dive at James Robinson. Top 10 RB. Had 1 week where he scored, 2 weeks less than 10 points, but he's been pretty consistent otherwise. Really filling in that role that Leonard Fournette left pretty well. Kareem Hunt had a decent game. I think Tyreek had a long... not a long one that game. Maybe it's next week. Juju with a touchdown and a 2-point conversion. Thielen, Kelsey, Galladay. Chark did not play. We will get into draft order after this, but when you look at DJ Chark and you just see that minus, it means this is an unset lineup. So that will dock Mosley for one, it'll dock him a draft ball. It will get him out of this for one drawing as well. So look at some benches. Eric Ebron. I don't even want to talk about him, but he had almost 14 points. That really could have made the difference. That would have been a league winner this week. So let's take a peek. 103% of their perfect possible lineup. I didn't even think that was possible. So good job. 69% of their highest. Biggest blowout for Ben. Like I said, was the highest point scorer. Lowest score with 89.1 was Ryan. I'm not really going to get into these kickers and everything of the week, but there's a quick look at them. Let's get into week 4. Alrighty. Eastwood took the win home against Ben. Kyler Murray, this was Joe Mixon's week. He almost had 40 points. Let's take a peek at his breakdown. 2 rushing scores, 151 rushing yards, receiving touchdowns, 6 receptions. This was a Joe Mixon game for sure. Jerick McKinnon, Kamara, both had 19. Eckler got hurt this week. Allen Robinson had over 100 yards. Will Fuller had a touchdown and over 100 yards. Robbie Anderson's pretty surprising this year. Julio has been a big disappointment. That guy gets healthy. I think he's going to help somebody out in the backstretch of this year. Now let's look at some benches. The Tennessee and Pittsburgh game was postponed, so nobody played that game. Rager on IR. Who cares about that game? Matt and Luke. Luke took the L this week. Lamar Jackson almost had 30. Dalvin Cook had a pretty solid game, 2 touchdowns. Has been a really good runner so far. He did get hurt, so we will see who picked up his backup. Mark Andrews finally coming out of his shell. Got 2 touchdowns this week 4. Kickers were pretty mediocre in this matchup, only 2 apiece. Again, Derrick Henry sitting out because of that postponed game. A second kicker with 11 points on your bench. That would have made the difference. All right, Connor versus Ryan. Ryan took home the win. You can see on Connor's team, he's got some pretty good starts, with Ryan Fitzpatrick, Chris Carson, and Mike Davis. They're all really good starts. Calvin really not catching anything really hurt him. Brandon Cook's not catching anything really hurt him. Higbee had a mediocre week. I dropped Higbee in the one league. I actually own him because I was sick of his shit. Devontae Parker. But yeah, it just wasn't enough to get Robert Tonyan, who would have thought, 3 touchdowns. Devontae Adams isn't playing, and they've had some injuries to their other wide receivers as well, so it was inevitable somebody was going to catch those balls. Aaron Rodgers has been on fire this year. Blankenship's actually the number 2 kicker, FYI. This was a really good low-key pickup for Ryan. He scored less than 10 points once this season, by the look of it. So yeah, if you're looking for a kicker, look for Blankenship. I don't care who you have, unless it's Justin Tucker. I think Blankenship would be better suited to start. Look at all these points on Ryan's bench. Wow. He's got 3 people over 20. Herbert, I think Herbert was the best quarterback of the week in week 4. Been a really surprising, real positive note for that Chargers team. Joel beat Chris. I don't know what happened with Chris. He's still, I know he started Chris Thompson, who I don't think, Chris Thompson, I think it might be time to move on from Chris Thompson. He is shitty. He is not doing good. Montgomery had an okay week. Golden Tate's been kind of hit or miss. Without Saquon Barkley, the Giants' offenses looked terrible, and I'm sure they didn't look that much better with him either. But when you lose a playmaker like that, it kind of sucks for you. 17 from a kicker, pretty impressive. And it's not like Chris had any better options on his bench because all he has is Duke Johnson and Matt Ryan. Everybody else was hurt or did not play. Yeah, from starting 3-0, Chris is now 3-2. Going on the wrong side of the ball here. Here goes Randy against Elliott. This was a rivalry game. Randy gets an extra ball, and he was the highest point scorer as well. Elliott's still riding Dak Prescott at this point. Singletary, Ronald Jones had over 15. Aaron Jones is still a force to be reckoned with. Stephon Diggs, Amari Cooper had a huge game against Cleveland. Kittle had a huge game against Philly. Mike Evans had a big game. So, yeah, Randy's riding some big games over here. I'm looking at some benches. Latavius Murray, I don't blame you for not playing him. I didn't play him either this week against the Lions, which you should know better by now. Or I should know better, excuse me. Sean against Mosley. Sean, took the W home. Rodgers has been white hot this year. Gurley had 2 touchdowns. Actually lost me a matchup in my other league. Beckham had 3 scores, had a huge game against Dallas as well. Thielen's one of those guys. He's going to be targeted heavily and often. Let's see. T. Higgins had over 10. Jerry Jeudy had a long touchdown catch. Chark had 2 touchdowns, killed it. Bench-wise, Brady went off. But, yeah, when you have Rodgers and Brady, that's going to be a toss-up every week. But this season, it's looking like an Aaron Rodgers year. He might be in top 5 in the MVP voting. All right, so let's go to week 5. So we're finally getting to last week. This was a rivalry game for both the Johns, Mosley and Eastwood. Eastwood took home a W this time around. Kyler Murray almost 30. Let's see. DJ Moore over 20, Thielen over 20, Tyreek over 15, Justin Jefferson pretty disappointing, Russell Gage disappointing, Chark got hurt in that game. See some benches. Mike Williams went off with 2 touchdowns on Eastwood's bench. Didn't really hurt him that much, but Mosley's bench did. Almost 18 from Edmonds. Henderson had 20. Hunter Henry had a score, but let's compare it to the tight end who started Ebron. You know there's an issue when you're starting Ebron every week, but at the same time, he was the highest scoring tight end a couple weeks back, so it's really tough to judge. All right, Matt versus Ryan. Ryan took home the win. Matt started as the highest point scorer in week 1, and he's kind of either played somebody who scored more. That's my John Madden analysis. He either played somebody who just scored more or just hasn't had good luck regardless. But 30 from Herbert. I think Ryan's found his quarterback to start every week. DK Metcalf went off. Jonnu Smith is like the second highest scoring tight end in standard leagues. So yeah, Ryan's putting all the pieces together. He just traded for DeAndre Hopkins as well. Still has Miles Sanders. Blankenship again, scoring 10 points. Big leg from Blankenship. I think he went to Florida State or Georgia, one of those schools down there. Really good pickup. All right, and here comes Connor getting wins. And he was the highest scoring team, so that gives him an extra ball in our draft order as well. Had another big game from Fitzpatrick. They whooped on the 49ers this week, which is very surprising. Mike Davis, again, very consistent in that McCaffrey role, 25 points. Hopkins had a huge week. Calvin Ridley, 17. Crowder still. Let's look at Jamison Crowder. He missed 2 weeks of the season, but he scored over 20 points twice. That's really good value when he's actually on the field. And now that Le'Veon Bell is gone, we'll see if their offense changes any at all. But let's face facts. Crowder is Darnold's number 1. I believe Darnold has been hurt, so now he's Flacco's number 1. But still, Higbee again, kind of trending in the wrong direction. Slayton was 16, over 100 yards against Dallas. 20 from a kicker, 13 from a kicker. Those are big kicking weeks. Let's count the field goals. There's 5 field goals kicked and 4 extra points kicked. That's a 20 burger from a kicker. That's rare. Connor does have Madison, so now that Dalvin Cook is not playing, that'll be somewhere to play this coming week. Nice, so congratulations to Connor. You won a game. Let's see if you can keep that momentum going. Sean with a win over Ben here. Mahomes still hanging 30. Really good running back tandem here with Josh Jacobs and Todd Gurley, especially lately. Josh Jacobs has been on fire so far. Gurley. Let's take a peek at Gurley. Almost a top 10 running back in PPR. He had 1 week under 10 points. He seems to be trending up, so maybe this is a guy to trade away, knowing his knee issues. But we will see what happens. Robbie Anderson's been really consistent this year. I remember watching the Fantasy Footballers podcast, and they're making fun of Robbie Anderson for half the season. You can see Sanu has been released by the 49ers, so this is an unset lineup, so -1 for Sean. Nobody really on the bench, but you two have an empty slot. You could have picked somebody up. I don't want to hear it. Alrighty, let's go. Joel beat Elliott by about 7-ish points. Dak Prescott got hurt this week, so now Elliott's got to do some research. We'll look at his bench and see if he has a quarterback on the bench. Kareem Hunt in that number 1 role, almost getting 17 for Joel, is pretty good. Really disappointing week for Juju, but he had more than enough points from CeeDee Lamb and Travis Kelce. Robert Woods had a 19-point game. I believe he had a long touchdown in this game. If you look at that breakdown, 19.10. 4 catches, 71 yards, and a long touchdown catch. Jimmy Graham with 10 from a kicker. You can see on Joel's bench he had quite a bit of points. Good chunk of QBs. But, yeah, Joel didn't need it. All right, Randy. 96. Over straight cash, homie. So, Randy in the top spot so far. Still getting pretty consistent production from Bridgewater, Ronald Jones. Diggs has been a really big bright spot this year. As you can see on Chris's team, that's an unset lineup with Michael Thomason. So that's -1 ball in the grand scheme of things. We'll go over that at the end of the video. So let's take a peek. Yeah, not a lot of good starts on Chris's side. Traquan Smith is kind of disappointing there with only 2 catches for 8 yards. But again, Jared Cook would be the only one that could help him on the defense or on the bench side of things. And we are going to look at the current standings. We got a 3-way tie for first place. It's pretty even down the board here. Let's take a peek. We have Randy highest point score by just 1 point. But there's a 3-way tie for first place. It is Randy, Ryan, and Eastwood. A 3-way tie for second place with Sean, Joel, and Chris. A 3-way tie for third, Ben, Matt, and Elliot. And a 3-way tie for fourth, Mosley, Connor, and Luke. So we have, it is still pretty wide open at this point. I don't think anybody's out of it just yet. But let's look at the playoff bracket if the season ended today. If the season ended today, Ryan and Randy, RJ, would get the bye weeks. Sean would play Joel to see who plays RJ, and Chris would play Eastwood to figure out who went and played Ryan. The consolation bracket, Ben with the bye play whoever won the Mosley and Connor matchup. Matt with the bye playing either Luke or Elliot, whoever wins that. Alrighty, let's look at the matchups for this coming week. We do have one rivalry game that is the first rivalry game in this matchup. It is Sean and Chris. If you don't know, it's my brother and my cousin, so this is a family rivalry week. It's looking like Sean's gonna, he's projected 20 more points. We'll see why in a second. But yeah, he's got some good matchups. If Le'Veon gets picked up by a team this week, that might be a sneaky late play. Russell Wilson and Tyler Lockett on a bye. That's a huge blow to Chris. He's got to start Matt Ryan against a struggling Minnesota team. They did have a really good showing last week. They almost beat Seattle at home, which, given there's not fans in the stands, it's not a huge thing. But yeah, still got Mahomes. You have to compete with Mahomes and Gurley and Peterson and Hollywood. And let's do a deep dive. Other matchups of the week, we have a Eastwood squad against Matt, Kyler Murray, Myles Gaskin. I think is going to have a really good game against the Jets because everybody does at the running back spot. DJ Moore might be, it's a hit or miss. I'm starting him in the leagues that I have him as well against Chicago, but I'm ready to be disappointed, you know. Let's see, Christian Kirk against Dallas. Dallas's defense has been giving up a lot of points, so I think that's a good matchup. Mark Andrews against Philly. Derrick Henry, who Matt just traded for. Devontae Adams finally coming back. Let's look at some benches. Dalvin Cook is questionable. I don't think he's going to play by the look of it. That's a big blow to Matt's team. But he does now have Dalvin Cook and Derrick Henry. So that's a really good tandem. All right, let's see if Connor can keep the momentum going. He's projected to win. He did pick up Madison, who is the backup to Dalvin Cook, as I mentioned before. Mike Davis. He's been very, very consistent, projected almost 18 points. I think Josh Allen's going to throw for a lot of yards against Kansas City. I think that's going to be a game where both the defenses can't really stop each other. Hopefully, as a Mahomes owner, I always hope that. Calvin Ridley against Minnesota. it didn't seem like Julio was going to play. I think that's going to be a game where Calvin Ridley gets a lot of catches. The Minnesota secondary, at least I should say the corners, are very young, so they might be picked on. Crowder's been really consistent. And, they show Miami's not that great of a matchup, but when you're Jamison Crowder and you're the only guy the quarterback throws to, I still think he's going to get double-digit points. So get some benches. Kamara on a bye, of course. Julio questionable. So if Julio plays, you play him. You kind of have to play him. Andy Dalton for Dallas, the new starting quarterback now that Prescott got hurt. So Connor's got some good options. Low key for being 1-4, he's got really good individual players. So we'll go to Luke playing Joel. Lamar Jackson. Luke just traded Hopkins, but he did get Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who I think is on the up. He can. Let's take a peek at him. He's almost a top 10 quarterback. He scored no less than 9.5 points so far. I think he's going to have a good game against Buffalo. We'll see. They're speculating that maybe Le'Veon Bell would sign with the Chiefs. I still think Clyde Edwards is going to be a good fantasy player no matter what. Kelsey against Buffalo, Juju against Cleveland. I think the Cleveland-Pittsburgh game is going to be a very low-scoring game, but I think Juju Smith-Schuster will have a lot of catches. So we'll see about that. Galladay, a lot of green over here on the right side. Let's take a peek at some benches. Deontay Johnson's been hurt. Fitzgerald's not really trustworthy anymore. I don't really have a problem with any of these players on the bench. Devontae Freeman had a good week against the Cowboys, so maybe that would be a guy you can think about. Watkins is projected to miss the game. Gibson's been on the bench in most leagues that I've seen. He might be a sneaky play against the Giants, especially if Kyle Allen can somehow lead them to victory or in the lead, So RJ playing Ryan, 2 4-1 teams. This is a good matchup. So after this week, I believe there will be there'll only be 2 teams that can be 5-1. So we're getting smaller and smaller. We're seeing who's the cream rises to the top. If I were to quote Macho Man Randy Savage, so the cream will rise after this week. It's beginning to rise. Singletary with a good running matchup. Ronald Jones against Green Bay. I think that's going to be a sneaky. I think Ronald Jones gets 2 touchdowns this week. Chase Claypool, let's take a peek at his stats last week. He had a huge game, 39, almost 40 points. So we'll see if he can replicate that against Cleveland. Again, I don't think it's going to be a high-scoring game, but they have very gifted playmakers on both sides in the wide receiver position, so I wouldn't be surprised if it went the opposite way. Hopkins, a fresh Hopkins on Ryan's roster. Ryan's really got a really good roster besides Carson Wentz. I would start Herbert, but he's on a bye, so don't start Herbert because I'll dock you fantasy draft points. Excuse me, Jesus. A little early for me, I apologize. DeAndre Swift might have some sneaky value against Jacksonville. I think that's a game that Detroit can actually win. But am I starting him over Ronald Jones or Singletary? Probably not. Not over Mike Evans or Edelman either. So I like the lineups that they have here. Alrighty. Elliott versus Mosley. Mosley's got a very strong advantage because Elliott apparently hasn't looked at his lineup yet. It's Thursday. Prescott's out. Latavius Murray's on a bye. Let's see. Renfro's on a bye. The thing about Mosley's team is I like it when I look at it, but I don't know if he just had some bad luck or what, but he's got players that can win you some weeks. I think it's time for his team to start trending in the right direction as well, especially if Elliott doesn't look at his team because he needs to replace almost every position. He does have everything. He has 2 kickers. Sometimes you need 3 kickers, go crazy, I guess. But yeah, he'll drop one of his kickers, and I'm sure start Aaron Jones and a couple other guys. And he needs a quarterback. So let's do something I haven't done yet. So if you need a quarterback, let's take a peek at the best available quarterback. Gardner Minshew's playing Detroit, and I don't hate that pickup if you were to do that. Kirk Cousins against Atlanta, it'd be an interesting play. Atlanta can't stop anybody right now. They're terrible. They haven't won a game, but this might be the game where they surprise everybody. If I were picking up a quarterback right now, just looking at my options in the top 10 here, based on the matchup and the quarterback himself, Gardner Minshew throws the ball quite a bit. I would pick him up. Alrighty. Alright, so let's go over draft order. Before I do these drawings, I'm doing 5 drawings. So I'm going to do the 2 drawings with everybody in it, and then I need to do 3 drawings. One will not have Mosley in it because he didn't set a lineup. Matt didn't set one lineup, so one without Matt, and then one without Chris and Sean because they both didn't set the lineup in week 5. So I'm going to start with the 2 with everybody, and then we can go from there. All right. Who's getting lucky in Kentucky here? Okay. All right. Adding to Luke's side here, so and then let's put Luke back in there. Yeah, just because you won one of these drawings doesn't mean you're out of it for the other ones, of course. You're only out of them when you do not set lineups. So keep that in mind. Even if you play somebody who's trash or I've never heard of them before, you're trying, and I notice. So Luke got the first drawing. Who's number 2 gonna be? Wow. Sorry, not sorry. Number 2 is Luke as well. So Luke plus 3. Wow. Okay. So we need 1 drawing without Mosley, 1 without Matt, and 1 without Chris and Sean. So I found Matt. Matt is out of this one. Guess who? Got Luke for a 3rd straight time. And to be frank, I am not sorry because everybody's in there. So Matt back in. How the hell is this happening? I don't know. If you're skeptical, I'll pull out every ball after this and just let you know, to show you that there are other people in here. Oh, oops. I need to take out Mosley. I forgot. It's my fault. All right, so Mosley is out of this one. Oh, Lord. Making a mess. All right, 1 without Mosley, and then the last one will be without Chris and Sean. Finally got somebody different. Matt with 1 more. Okay. And now we need to do one without Chris and Sean. Mosley goes back in. Chris and Sean. Okay. You can see Chris in there. And Sean in there as well. Okay, last one of the episode here. Let's see what we can do here. All right, who's the lucky guy this week? All right, somebody different. So Ryan, one more extra for you. So Ryan plus 1. All right, so let me do some quick ones. 4 random drawings. Wow. Luca's won 4 random drawings, and that's blowing my mind right now. Well, that was pretty crazy. So Luke is now in the lead for the #1 pick next season. He has 5 chances. He's literally won 4 of these random drawings, and you start with 1. That is about a 20% chance. A great start, especially for a team that's 1-4 right now. When you start looking in towards next season, it's always more exciting when you have that first pick. In second place would be RJ. He has 4 out of 25, about a 16% chance. He was the highest point scorer 2 separate weeks, and won his rivalry game, so that gives you 4. There is a 3-way tie with 3 now. We have Ben, Matt, and Ryan. Ben had a rivalry week win. He was the highest point scorer as well. Matt was the highest point scorer week 1. He won a rivalry game and just won a random drawing today, but he did have an unset lineup, so that docks him back down to 3. He could have 4. He could be tied for second, but he didn't set a lineup. Ryan had a rivalry win and won a random drawing today, so that is 3 as well. Like I said, 12% chance for those guys, a little bit better than 10%. We have a 2-way tie, Connor and Eastwood. Connor being the highest point scorer this past week, week 5, gives him 2. That is about an 8% chance for Eastwood and Connor. Eastwood won his rivalry game this past week as well. We have a 3-way tie with 1 chance. Elliot, Joel, and Mosley all have 1. Mosley did win a random drawing, but he had an unset lineup, so that docks him back down to 1. And we do have a 2-way tie, unfortunately, with no chance at the #1 pick because of unset lineups. That would be Chris and Sean. No chance, 0% chance right now. They are rivals, and one of them will come out of this week with at least 1 chance at that #1 pick. But that's the way the cookie crumbles for that scenario. Guys, I really appreciate that you're active. There have been a number of trades, a lot of activity on the boards. I appreciate having people from lower Michigan, up north where I live, just being active and having fun, obviously when you win it's more fun, but yeah, I will see 2 of you in the Lombardi League next year. I still don't know who it's going to be. It's exciting for me. If you would like to watch the Lombardi League videos as well, I have them on my YouTube page. If you follow the link to YouTube for these pages or these videos, there'll be the Lombardi League episodes as well. But yeah, guys, I will see you next week. I have been really busy. I changed my schedule's changed. I got a new job. I work with nights now, so it's been kind of hard for me to wake up as early as I used to, knowing that I don't have to anymore. But yeah, I'll try to get my ass in gear and get you what you deserve, which is a weekly video and a trophy reveal later this season. But yeah, thanks, guys. I will see you next week, and good luck in week 6.